Hi guys, I am back to share some basic tips in dealing mathematical problems. Please share this video to reach those people who needs help in their math subjects. Kindly like and follow to support my channel. For today's video, we will discuss about the basic concepts in mathematical operations involving variables. So, what is a variable? In mathematics, variables are used similarly, representing quantities that can vary in value. In equations, variables are typically represented by letters, and their values can change depending on the context of the problem. For example, in the equation y equals mx plus b, y, m, x, and b are all variables representing different quantities. The values of these variables can change, and the relationship between them is described by the equation. And now, let's proceed on our main objective today, and that is to learn mathematical operation involving variables. Let's start with the rules in adding variables. Rule number 1. Like terms, only variables with the same name and same exponent, if applicable, can be combined. Take note, like terms are terms in algebraic expressions that have the same variables raised to the same powers. Remember that in adding same variables, all you need to do is simply add their coefficients and then copy the variable in your result. For example, 2x plus 2x equals 2 plus 2, and then copy the x. And 2x plus 2y can no longer be simplified since they are not the same variables. Rule number 2. Follow the basic rules in adding real numbers. You can visit my previous video for more details about the basic rules in adding real numbers. For subtraction involving variables, the same rule with the rules in addition is applied. And now, let's move on to the rules in multiplying variables. Rule number 1. Product of like bases. When multiplying variables with the same base, you add their exponents. By the way, for the coefficients we multiply them normally like how we usually perform basic multiplications. This rule is also known as the product rule of exponents. For example, 3x raised to the power of 2 times 2x raised to the power of 3 equals 3 times 2, which is the product of their coefficients, and for the exponent we simply add them, so 2 plus 3 is 5. Therefore, the answer is 6x raised to the power of 5. Nice and easy. Rule number 2. Product of unlike variable bases. When multiplying variables with different bases, you simply multiply the coefficients and then copy the variables. For example, 3x raised to the power of 2 times 2y raised to the power 3 equals 3 times 2 is 6, the product of the coefficients, and then simply copy the variables along with their exponents. Therefore, the answer is 6x raised to the power of 2 times y raised to the power of 3. Nice and easy. Rule number 3. Distributive property. When multiplying a term outside parentheses by each term inside the parentheses, you distribute the multiplication. And after distributing it, we apply rule number 1 and number 2. For example, 3x times the quantity x plus 2y raised to the power of 3. First distribute 3x inside the parenthesis, so we will have x times 3x plus 2y cubed times 3x. Then perform rule number 1 and 2. For the first term, x times 3x has same base variable, so we add their exponents, and applying rule number 2, we multiply their coefficients, and that is 3 times 1, so we have 3x squared for the first term. For the second term, we have rule number 2 for the product of the coefficients, and then we simply copy the variables since they are not the same base variable. Therefore, the final answer is 3x squared plus 6xy raised to the power of 3. Note we can further simplify our results by factoring. Nice and easy. Now let's proceed with division involving variables. The rules in dividing variables is very similar with multiplication. Rule number 1. Quotient of like bases. When dividing variables with the same base, you subtract the exponent of the divisor from the exponent of the dividend. For example, 4x squared divided by 2x cubed. For the coefficient, same with multiplication, we follow the usual way of dividing real numbers. So we have 4 divided by 2 equals 2. And for the variable, we have x squared as dividend and x cubed as our divisor. So we subtract their exponent. So we have 2 minus 3 equals negative 1. Take note, any number raised by a negative exponent can be transferred its fractional location. If it is in the denominator, we can move it to the numerator to remove its negative sign, and vice versa. Therefore, the final answer is 2 over x. Nice and easy. Rule number 2. Quotient of unlike bases. If the bases of the variables are not the same, then same with multiplication, we simply copy them and no further simplification is required. For example, 4x squared divided by 2y cubed. Dividing their coefficient, we have 2, and then simply copy the variables along with their exponents. Therefore, 4x squared divided by 2y cubed equals 2x squared over y raised to the power of 3. Nice and easy. Then, lastly, let's consider a variables with exponent raised to another exponent. For variables with exponent raised to another exponent, we simply multiply their exponents. For example, the quantity x squared times y cubed raised to the exponent of 2. So we simply multiply their exponent. Then we have x raised to 2 times 2 and y raised to the exponent of 3 times 2. Therefore, the final answer is x raised to 4 times y raised to 6. Nice and easy. And I think that's all for today. Hopefully you learned something on our short discussion. Engineer Kaz is signing off. Bye-bye.